to tonight's Moses Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation District Candidates Forum. This is sponsored by the Moses Lake Chamber of Commerce, the Moses Lake Business Association, KBSN, KDRM Radio, and the Columbia Basin Herald. My name is Bill Egert, and I'll MC your event this evening. At this time, I'd like to introduce the elected officials that we have in here. If you could please raise your hand. I don't know if we have a list. I see Councilman Nick Dean there. I see Councilmember Karen Liebrich. Anybody else here? Councilmember David Kern here in the front row. Looks like we have some PUD. Mr. Bob Burner, PUD Commissioner. Right behind him, John Lane, Lake City Councilman. So, welcome. One reminder as well, we'd like you to silence your cell phones. That goes for the candidates as well. Make sure that your cell phones are silenced during this event. The candidates that are running for the MLIRD Director position number 1 are Ron Colby and David Skog. The candidates running for the 2 new positions at large are Bill Bailey, Jeff Foster, Mary Perry, and Larry Tracy. Our official timer is the Moses Lake Chamber of Commerce Board President, Jordan Hamilton. He's right down here in front. And by the way, the timer tonight, candidates, is going to work in this way. When you first start speaking, you're going to see the green light, as you have right there. When you have 30 seconds remaining, you'll have the yellow light. And when your time is up, you'll have the red light. And if you don't stop, you're going to get buzzed. This evening, each candidate will be given an opportunity for opening remarks, limited to 3 minutes each. Then we will ask some prepared questions from the sponsors, which will be limited to a 2-minute response. As time permits, we'll ask questions from the audience, which will also be limited to 2-minute responses. Questions from the audience need to be left in written form, and they must be in the form of a question. They can be directed to one or more candidates. The chamber ambassadors in the back of the room will be handing the forms out, so please raise your hand, and they will get them to you. And when you finish with those, simply raise your hand again, and they'll pick those up. The sponsors do reserve the right to eliminate duplicate questions and, of course, personal attacks. We don't want those. The candidates will take turns being the first to answer the questions, unless a question is directed to one specific candidate. Before we begin, I'd like to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, as the candidates are ready, we will begin. Again, opening remarks. These are limited to 3 minutes each. Mr. Ron Colby.
Well, first of all, I want to know, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great, because I would like to stand as I make my remarks. I want to thank the Chamber. I want to thank MLBA, KDRM, KBSN, and Columbia Basin Herald for sponsoring this. I think it's a great opportunity for the citizens of the MLIRD to have a chance to hear what we have to say. And I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, because without you, this wouldn't be much of a forum. So, again, thank you. I'd like to start out by saying that I have served the last 3 years on the Board of Directors at MLIRD. I am certainly in favor of the direction that MLIRD has taken with regard to the dredging project, the aquatic herbicide treatment program, and currently the dam reconstruction, the North Dam, which is responsible for helping to maintain the level of our lake. I think that ever since the district hired Kirk Carpenter as the general manager in 2007, MLIRD has made some fantastic gains and strides. And therefore, it's a real professional organization at this point in time. It's not just a bunch of good old boys meeting and hiring a firm to do a consult and then getting a report and moving on. Unfortunately, that is the way it was for many years, and I certainly am not pointing a finger at those directors, but that's just the way MLIRD has conducted business for a number of years. We currently have a staff of 4 full-time employees, 5 full-time employees, I should say, and they're working the dredge 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. So fortunately, that dredge project has made a substantial improvement with regard to the sedimentation that is at the bottom of the lake. Secondly, the aquatic herbicide treatment program is both the aquatic portion and the riparian portion. And we have seen that many of you may not understand this, but we no longer have the problems with algae bloom. It's sago seaweed and the Eurasian milfoil. So again, I support that, and I support construction of the dam. It's about the end of my time, so thank you very much.
Next, we have opening remarks from David Skog.
I'm David Skog. I'm going to sit, if that's okay. I've been a Moses Lake resident all my life. I was born here, swam State Park, took swim lessons from Mel Olson, and threw a lot of clumps of algae in my life. I've skied on the lake, I've fished on the lake, I've water skied on the lake, I've sailed on the lake. I've spent a lot of time on the lake. I have a vested interest in Moses Lake. I've been a Moses Lake business person for over 40 years with 2 other brothers, and have an 11-year-old son who I'm sure is going to grow up to enjoy the hunting and some of the fishing and perhaps some skiing and jet skiing that I got to enjoy. So I have a vested interest in what happens in Moses Lake. For me, I'm not all that happy with what's been going on as far as the management of the lake. I think we've spent literally millions of dollars. The dredge program is dredging on. When it says that it's a successful program, I have yet to see any published numbers that say this is what has happened. They talked about, the original engineer said that 50 to 60,000 cubic yards a year would be removed. We've had 3 years. 1 year was kind of a bust. But, you know, if we're driving to Seattle at 3 miles an hour, or if we're driving to Seattle at 60 miles an hour, it makes a big difference on when we get there and how long it takes. I think we have to have measured results. If we don't have measured results, shiny doesn't work. That's a problem that I see. It seems like the directors, I'm tickled to death that there's going to be 5 of them. I think it's been a real contentious situation that didn't need to be there. It shouldn't be there. I think by spreading that out with a little broader based thinking, there should be less of that, and spreading out decisions over 5 people would, I think, would be I'm looking forward to being a part of that situation. Again, I think we have to have measured results. We have to have accountability. The projects, I don't know how those are prioritized, but they should be the projects that are prioritized by a board of directors that are directed by the ratepayers, which does bring up another issue as far as ratepayers go. There's a lot of people who are ratepayers, and there's a lot of people who even live on the lake who are not ratepayers. There's a lot of people who have an interest in what goes on in Moses Lake, but are not part of the process, particularly part of the financial process. I think that should change. I think that should be all-inclusive. If you live on the lake, if you're part of it, if it's a decision that you want to say in, then fund it. I think there's the taxing methods and authority need to be fully examined and make sure that they're right. So we all want a lake that we can enjoy and be a part of, but I think it needs to be fully sponsored by everyone who benefits from it. Thank you.
Next, we have opening remarks from Mr. Bill Bailey.
Good evening, I'm Bill Bailey. I think we missed one introduction here tonight. Norm Estes is in the audience. And Norm was one of those long-time directors that was mentioned earlier, and I'd like to recognize him and say, Norm, I appreciate what you did over the many years that you served on the Moses Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation District Board. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of our community is linked to the health of the lake. Our lake is slowly dying. We must remove the silt. We know that that's started, and keep the lake clean. If you look at Parker Horn over the last 30 years, look at the depth of the silt that's in there now, as well as many other parts of the lake. Recreation is an important asset for this community. It is part of our quality of life. Water is liquid gold. The 50,000 acre foot water right is important to local agriculture and the groundwater supplies, think of Bay Valley, Cascade Valley, McConaughey, and the Dune Lake area. The lake may be a future source of irrigation water for all homeowners in the district, as our potable groundwater supplies are dwindling in this community and in this area. Water is not finite. We can run out. We must work, we as a board, to include our entire community in the Moses Lake Irrigation and Rehabilitation District.